Once upon a time, very, very old man wrote a book about 6,000 years ago. Now, this wasn't just an ordinary book. This was a book written in rhyme, in a language that pretty much only used onomatopoeia, that told a story that you were supposed to sing. It's it's not your classic run-of-the-mill book. The level of intentionality is out of this universe. And in this book, which by the way doesn't have a start or an end, are stories that depict the nature of reality itself. Isn't that fascinating? Guess when this was done? About 6,000 years ago. Yeah. Did they even have pens? What did they write this with? It must have been engraved in stone. Maybe they did have pens. The point I'm making is that this is some majestic stuff. Now, this majestic stuff, it doesn't have to be read from these ancient Sanskrit transcripts. It can be understood right now in this direct experience. So what we commonly believe, if you go off Einstein's idea of time being relative, we could argue that all time exists at once. Now, quantum physics nowadays has clarified that this is the case. And anyone that isn't like been taking too much Colgate toothpaste would understand, or drinking too much tap water will understand at this stage that all things exist simultaneously. All timelines, all possibilities, it all exists simultaneously. So when we say they were written 6,000 years ago, when we talk about Jesus and the Buddha, they're present now. These aren't past things. These aren't things that happened. They're things happening. And they describe the essence of reality as having the same source. So in your experience right now, there are objects. And these objects, they seem to come from different places. But you actually know, even on a relative scientific level, they don't really come from different places, they come from planet Earth. So everything comes from Earth, which you know is carbon, helium, blah, 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 right? Which then come from atoms. And then we get further and further down and we get to something called quarks, and then we get waves and particles, which actually aren't something at all. So in essence, when we break the world down into its fundamental core, the world changes depending on whether someone is observing it. So the essence of these ancient onomatopoeia rhymed song stories that were written 6,000 years ago that depict reality, they basically say, you are the source of reality. Now, 6,000 years later, we happen to find ourselves with these little scientists spooking around the lab, trying to understand what particles are, have found out the same thing. They found out that reality changes depending on whether it's observed, which, as you can understand, means that which observes reality creates reality. It is intertwined. What we see is what we are, which means you're not just a body and a mind. Now, these ancient transcripts depict that we have been never started and we have never ended. We are one continuous, whole, universal God. God not in the sense of the Christian term. Don't take me out of term there. God in the sense of that which creates all reality. That which simply is, that cannot be destroyed, which you could call universal intelligence, universal love. And it is experiencing itself right now through you looking at your phone and me looking at the camera. We are intertwined. We're not intertwined, we're the same being. We share the same consciousness. So the same consciousness is experiencing this conversation as the same consciousness that is listening to it. And what this basically means is that nothing is separate in reality. It appears to be separate, just like it appears when you're on a Zoom call, right, or a Zoom meeting. There seems like there's 10 different people on the screen, but there's not. The screen is not. If I touch the screen, I'm not going to be poking anyone in the eye, right? It's just one whole complete screen that appears as though there are 10 different faces on it. Just like when you're watching a movie, it seems like there are different people, but there's not different people. So in the same likeness, when we live our experience right now, everything is happening seemingly like there are separate things that have a separate cause, but everything is actually created from the same cause. But then some people may say, well, what about, how do you explain the Big Bang? Well, scientists can't even explain the Big Bang. You see what I mean? It's not like the Big Bang is like a plausible theory to base anything off. The Big Bang is actually the mind's attempt to try and describe that the Big Bang is happening right now. The universe is one big banging banger who's banging everything into existence every second of the day. It's like a drummer. It's just banging all day long. Every single moment that you have a new perception is a Big Bang. It is just instantly generated. Now, when the mind tries to seek through relativity, in other words, when the mind tries to look for a story to explain this, it will look into what we call, it will perfectly make sense of itself up until a certain point. And that point will always be that something comes out of nothing without any reason or cause. And this is what the Big Bang is trying to explain. Something came out of nothing without any reason or cause. And how they do that, they track the movements and stuff like that to a point where there's just nothing. But ultimately, that's not even accurate. It's happening right now. Because how can we explain time? If the Big Bang was the start of time, technically time is limited because it started. And if time can be limited, it has to be relative. If time is relative, everything is absolute, so there is no actual time. If there's no actual time, everything takes place at the same time. So there is no difference between whether the Big Bang happened then or now. Every form of perception is the Big Bang. There's no such thing as some exploding thing that came out of nothing. Everything is created from consciousness. So these ancient texts that talk about nature of reality, what they're basically saying is consciousness is the nature of reality. What do we mean by consciousness? That which is simply aware of these words right now. You hear my voice, you hear the thoughts in your mind. It's the same awareness that hears the thoughts in your mind, that hears the thoughts in my mind, that hears my voice, that hears your voice, that is experiencing the exact same thing. Now, what does this mean? Why is this important? It's important because, well, there will come a time, whether it's in this lifetime or the next, or this day or tomorrow, you will be curious about this. It is evolutionary. It's an evolutionary process to just become interested in this. You have no say in the matter. You will be either interested or not interested, but eventually you will be interested enough to want to know. This desire, this curiosity is going to carry your journey. So you could try to not want to know or try to not care. Eventually you will care enough to want to know, and then this is the place you'll come to, and you'll find a video on YouTube like you are right now with me discussing it. So most people try then to use this path in order to remove suffering. And weirdly, it is an antidote to suffering, but not in the way we think it is. It's an antidote to suffering because we realize suffering is purely illusory. You can only realize that when you understand what you are. When you realize that the one that suffers, the one that thinks is suffering right now, doesn't actually exist. The suffering will dissolve. Not instantaneously, there's a lot of other steps than that, but I'm trying to be brief here. The suffering will dissolve over time because you realize the suffering doesn't actually exist itself. The Indian analogy that they use is that there's twilight, you're walking down the street, and there's a snake on the floor, and you're like, oh my God, there's a snake. And then all of a sudden, you get a little bit closer and you go, oh no, it was just a rope. So in the moment where you felt the fear that the snake was there, because this is India now, these are poisonous snakes, and they can kill you. And it's not modern day age where you can just get the medicine, so you were gonna die. So, the snake was there, you're about to get bitten, all of a sudden, you feel a rush of fear, suffering, whatever you want to call it. And then you realize it was just a rope. So the question is, were you suffering? I mean, yes, you were while you were experiencing it, but was the suffering real? Was it based on something that could have hurt you or endangered you? No, it wasn't. So then what was the suffering? Like, which aspect of that whole dynamic was your suffering? Well, the suffering was the fact you thought something was going to kill you, but the thing wasn't actually the thing, and the suffering was based on something that wasn't real. So yes, you suffered, but you suffered on the premise of something that doesn't exist, which means the suffering was illusory on an ultimate level. We find this is the same with ourselves. When we experience life, we experience suffering because we think we are suffering from something in particular. But really, the only thing we're suffering from is not looking at something. The thing we're not looking at is typically something that we feel in the body. So on this path, we discover the antidote to suffering because we realize that that which we ultimately are cannot actually suffer. Could you imagine that? Imagine living, hold on a minute, one sec. Imagine living your life without needing to suffer. What do you think you'd do with that life? Because primarily speaking, most people don't do things because they're scared to suffer. Like most people close their heart, close their mind, and sit in the narrow bandwidth of their comfort zone because they are worried about suffering more than they currently are. Just process that for a minute. They're already suffering most of the time, but then to avoid more suffering, they avoid doing things they actually want just in case they suffer more. Isn't that a fantastic way to live? So could you imagine living without needing to suffer? This is the beauty of this path, but we're not really there in it for that only. We're in it for truth because there's an innate desire in you to discover something greater than yourself. Everybody has that. And now what we want to kind of come to terms with is, do I seek to remove my suffering or do I seek to understand the nature of reality? Well, both is the consequence, but the only way you're going to get there is if you desire truth. Because in the desire to remove suffering, you create more suffering and you close yourself off to truth. So this part of this video, I want to disentangle that desire and point you directly to truth. The truth in this moment is that everything you experience is merely made of your mind. Not just your mind, every mind, right? Every single mind. The substratum of your current experience is mind stuff. When I say mind stuff, what do I mean? I mean like thought, imagination. If you think a thought, what happens? Well, it's mind stuff, right? It happens within you. If you feel something within you, it's within you. If you imagine a pink elephant, it's within you. That's mind stuff. We usually think that outside me isn't mind stuff. That's world stuff. That's separate stuff. That's a chair. That's a floor. But actually, what direct experience, primary experience, do you have of the actual world you experience? Try it right now. When you touch the chair, what is the primary experience you're having? The primary experience is a sensation. It's not of a chair. What happens then when you see something? Well, you experience color. Color is purely generated by your mind. Color doesn't exist in an object. No objects have color. What about when you hear a sound? Well, you don't hear the sound. Like if a duck quacks, you're not hearing the duck. You're experiencing sound. Like you can't touch a duck by hearing its quack, right? You're hearing the quack. The quackness isn't in the duck. Ducks don't have quack. You can't open up a duck. No one goes to the Chinese restaurant and goes, "Can I get a duck with some quack?" No, it's just a duck. You don't have quack in a duck. Ducks do not have quack, you see? Water doesn't have splash. If you go to the water, you can drink some water. Can I have a water with some splash? No, you don't have splash inside water. Splashing, quacking, these aren't things in the thing, you see? They are created by our mind. It's purely a mental experience, just like a thought is. When you look at your whole experience, everything is that way. Apples don't have red or green. Walls don't have white. Bricks don't have orange. Nothing has the qualities that we actually perceive of them. Process that for a moment. So that means that when you look at a tree, you're not actually seeing the tree in the real sense. You're seeing your mental ideas and constructs of what appears to look like what we would call a tree. You touch it, you're experiencing a sensation. Trees aren't made of sensations. You see it, you're experiencing color. Trees aren't made of color. If you took the anatomy of a tree, color would not be inside. If you tap the tree, chop, chop, chop. Chop's not in the tree, man. You can't get chop from a tree, you see? You can't get any of the qualities, I hope you see the point I'm making, you can't get any of the qualities that you actually experience of the tree from the tree. So how do you know what you're experiencing is actually outside you when the only experience you have of the world is inside you? It's an internal experience. It just seems to be external because we have a belief that we're located in the body. But when you go to dream at night, when you go to bed, you fall asleep. You're in Skibbityville, and you wake up and you're in Las Vegas in the dream. The whole dream is made of your mind, but it looks like you're in the center of it experiencing an external world. You see? You're in Skibbityville, fast asleep, but in the dream, your entire world is generated by you, and it looks like you are in the body in that dream experiencing it. But you're not. You're not the individual in the body, you are the entire experience. Then when you wake up, you find exactly the same thing. It just seems to be more universal. There just seems to be other people involved in this one, and it seems to be a little bit longer and a little bit more consistent. You could say it's a little bit more realer than the dream, but what difference does it make? You see? We've been conditioned to believe we're inside the body. Thousands and thousands of years of actual exploration, not just conditioned exploration that we've had for the past 100 years by this somewhat sketchy government has fed us. We have known for a very long time that we are not confined to the body. You see? And this is your glimpse into understanding that. It's not the point whether you see the infinite truth in this experience right now. My point here is to give you the glimpse of this understanding, a taste of what it might be like. Because what you find is that you don't ever come into contact with the things you touch either. Now there's another level, we're going to go deep here. You touch the chair, right? You experience a sensation. But notice that there is a sensingness, right? So let's do an easier one. When you listen to the sound of the room, right? Let's just say you're listening right now. There's cars passing by, there's birds tweeting, there's my voice going on and on and on, non-stop. And all of a sudden you realize that you are hearing different things. But the hearingness is always the same. You see, you have the faculty, hearing. The sounds are always different, but the hearing is always the same. Your experience isn't of the sound, it's of hearing. You are hearing, you are pure hearing. You're not listening to, you're hearing a sound because a sound is just the experience of hearing. So you're only experiencing hearing. And now here's the next step. If you're just experiencing hearing, if you were to take a sample of the hearingness, what would be in that experience, right? If imagine we're a scientist, right? And we're trying to understand what's inside this thing. Right? You would, if it was a physical object, you'd be able to actually like get a scalpel, get a spoon or something, and then like put it in a little thing and spin it around. I don't know what scientists do. That seems what they do in films. And you'd be able to understand what's inside. But we can't do that, right? Because one, we don't have any scientists to scoop our brains. We probably do somewhere, but we don't have any scientists to do that right now. So we have to be the scientist. Now, what's the one principle that they talk about in the Vedas? That you are the leading authority, not somebody else, not a teacher, not a scientist, not some philosopher on a mountaintop. You are the leading authority over discovering this truth, which means my job is absolutely useless. I don't even know why I'm here right now because it means nothing. Everything I say means nothing. Everything you see means everything. So you have to put yourself as the leading authority on truth. So coming back, you're the scientist, philosopher on the top mountaintop in a lab. You imagine yourself, you're the mountaintop, you've been there for 20 years studying life, and you're there, you've done the work, right? Let's pretend you're there. Now, we want to study what is in the actual substance of the experience of hearing. Now, we don't need tools for this, right? We don't need to use a scalpel, we don't use a spoon, we don't use a little needle. We just need to see. It's literally that simple. What is the substance present in the experience of hearing? What's the only thing present? Well, we have the seeming sound, but we know that the sound is just hearingness. So the sound isn't present, even though we could argue temporarily it's present, but it's not ultimately present. Hearing is present. And what's the other thing? Well, the only other thing is that I know that it's there. Oh, I know it's there. Awareness is present. Awareness is present in the experience of hearing. What else is present? Nothing else. The only thing present in the experience of hearing is awareness. Now notice, think a thought. Let's say the bird flew over the hill. The bird flew over the hill. The bird flew over the hill. Think it in your mind. The bird flew over the hill. What's present, right? You could say, well, the thought is present. Okay, but what's present in the thought? If we were to grab the esoteric, formless scalpel and just open the thought up for a moment, what's inside it? There's nothing inside. The only thing there is awareness. The only thing present of the experience is being aware of it. Isn't that fascinating? We have some experiences, and the only thing present in them is awareness. Now, I want you to think of every experience you've ever had in your entire life. What's the only thing that how else would you render the experience an experience? It would be the fact that you were aware of it. Every single experience, every perception, all boils down to awareness. Isn't that fascinating? Guess what you are? You are aware. Tell me about the experience of yourself. Do you have something external, or are you internal experience? Tell me, what do you know about yourself? Don't tell me about your body, your sensations, your feelings. Tell me about just what you are. You just know that you are, right? Just like you only know the hearing is there because you just know it's there. The seeing is there because you know it's there. You are there because you know you're there. Have you noticed that the primary experience is always awareness? It always comes back around to being aware. Well, this is what they're saying. That your awareness is the substratum of all of existence. Not your awareness, this primary finite body's awareness. This finite body's awareness is not a finite awareness, it's an infinite awareness. And it is the substratum of all minds. Every person we see is just us from another point of view wearing a different costume. So what you've just discovered is that all your sensations, perceptions, sights, colors, tastes, whatever it might be, is simply the experience of awareness vibrating. These are vibrations of awareness. Just like my burp is a vibration of... It doesn't make any sense. It's all vibrations of awareness. So when you think a thought, there's pure consciousness, and then I'm thinking a thought, I'm thinking a thought. You see? The bird flew over the hill. It's all vibrations and ripples of awareness. Now, it may not look that way when you see or when you hear, because you can't, it's like look that way, but you can't look at a sound. You see? The experience of seeing is seeing. You can't look at the seeing. So this is what Advaita Vedanta is describing. That you are the substance of creation. You are creation. Creation simultaneously creates itself and experiences itself in an infinite, beautiful, whatever you want to call, whatever's happening. I have a free community. We talk about this stuff all the time. If you'd like to join, the link's in the description. I'd love to see you there. Have a beautiful day, guys. Take care.